Hey guys, Andy here from Mediocre Hobbies coming at you with some Krieg goodness, or some almost Krieg goodness. As you guys are aware, if you watch my content, I am a huge fan of the Death Corps of Krieg. It is probably my largest standing Imperial Guard army. I have many Imperial Guard armies, but it's definitely my largest standing one. It's the one I keep adding cool bits to, but I kind of overstretched with things that aren't infantry. I have one full platoon done. But other than that, I've got a million horses and cannons and artilleries and about 50 tanks. And I've just realized now that it's probably about time that I start doing a second and potentially third platoon of Death Corps of Krieg infantry for that force. I think it's about time to add those in. So then I started to go through the process of which miniatures I was going to use to represent them. I obviously have a huge stack of the plastic ones, which is just killing me to have to build them. I've got 7 boxes of them sitting there to build, and I just can't be bothered. They're just so awkward. It's going to take so much time. I will do them. I definitely want a full plastic platoon, and that is something that I will do in the future. But currently I stand at 1 full platoon of Forge World. I'm going to have 1 full platoon, 55 strong, of plastics, and I'm going to have 1 55 strong 3D printed miniatures. And that's where the sponsor of today's video comes in handy. It is ProxyWars. So ProxyWars is a stand-in for 3D printing companies. How it works is they have the license to print and sell 3D printed files from a bunch of different companies. This is really useful for me because my favorite alternate Death Corps of Krieg miniatures come from Station Forge, and they have the files for those, which allows you to purchase these miniatures already printed, already cleaned up, straight to your front door at a fraction of the cost of buying the ones from Games Workshop. It's €50 for a plastic squad, and it's €70 for a resin squad, like a Forge World squad of Death Corps of Krieg, and the Station Forge ones are definitely a hell of a lot cheaper than that. So it's a great option to get your hands on some extra infantry. So I'm going to show you what those models look like today and get one of them painted up for you. So hopefully you can see for yourself why I personally choose them as my stand-in for Death Corps of Krieg. Before I get into it, so a huge thank you to everyone out there that supports me, whether it's watching my videos, liking, commenting, subscribing, or if you're doing the best thing, which is of course supporting me over on Patreon. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. All of that stuff is down below, whether you want to like, comment, subscribe, or check out Patreon in the description. It all helps. All right, guys, thank you so much. Let's dive into this Krieg model. Okay, so this is some of the sculpts from the Station Forge Krieg, which are obviously, of course, known as the Grim Guard. That is their name. And these miniatures are 2 pieces. The arms and gun is 1 piece, and the body and head and torso and feet, all that is 1 other piece. So it prints as 2 separate pieces, glue them together, and you have a finished miniature. I love that. There's a bunch of different options for equipment. Every single model you can see here has the option to have a flamer or a grenade launcher or whatever you want. So you can build whatever kind of layout you want your squad to have that suits you and your playstyle. And like I said, as a person who has built and painted an entire Forge World resin platoon of Krieg, their sculpts are extremely old and tired. They're not really that fun to do. They look good on the table and I'm happy to have them, but this I feel is it's just beautiful. These are perfect sculpt. Like the plastic ones from Games Workshop, they're also perfect sculpts. So I think every Kriegsman I do from now on will be one of these 2 variants. I don't think I'll be venturing back to the Forge World Kriegsman kind of ever again. So I started the process by spraying the miniatures black and then a light grey over the top of that to give me a perfect base coat to start applying contrast. Normally I use Chaos Black and Grey Seer from the Games Workshop range. This time I played around with the Color Forge, so I used Matte Black and Ghoul Grey. They worked great. Very happy with the results. So yeah, big thumbs up for me for the Color Forge sprays. After that, I moved on to pretty much my standard way of painting Krieg that I've shown you guys before. We get some Space Wolves grey contrast. We apply that to all of the jackets. They're big grey coats. Obviously, I'm doing the Siege Regiment, which is that traditional color with the blue robes. Blue robes. They're not from Harry Potter, Andy. These are the overcoats or the grey coats, if you will. Wildwood was then brought in for the trousers, the boots, not the gaiter parts, not the straps. We'll leave those as they are. The wraps, we'll do them in a different color in a moment. And then obviously all of the webbing that goes on over the great coat. So it goes around the waist, up and over both shoulders. And his gas tank, as opposed to the traditional Games Workshop style, is on their back. Now I could have done the whole thing silver, but I decided to do it as if it was got a kind of a leather casing around it, like the Games Workshop one. So I put a little bit of Wildwood on there. Agros Dunes is what I use for the wraps, kind of rest of the gloves, and the gas mask itself, the actual one that goes on the face. I hit that with an Agros Dunes. Once again, very nice, very breaks up the blue and the brown really well, and it just looks so good as Krieg. Not something you have to take a lot of care with is applying these base coats. Everything is going to get shaded down, and then we're going to spend a little bit of time layering this model up, so don't worry too much about that. And as you can see, the shade thrown into the face just grabs all the detail really well. Lead Belcher was then brought in for all the rest of the base coats on the miniature pretty much, so all the pipe work, gas mask, all the other components of the rifle, his 2 armored shoulder pads, his helmet, cabling going into his rebreather set on the back, things like belt buckles, and any other bits and pieces, buttons on the jacket. If you want them to be silver, now is the time to grab your Lead Belcher and go to work. Once all of these paints have been applied, it is now time to shade the miniature down, and we are very simply going to do what I've done with every other Kriegs, including all my tanks, is grab some Seraphim Sepia and apply that all over the miniature. You're going to control this. You don't want it to kind of pool in any weird areas. You don't want too much in any one place. You just want to get a nice dark shade into all the recesses of the miniature. It's going to set the model off perfectly for the layering stage, which you're going to get to in a moment. Before I do get there though, I do want to very quickly show you the ProxyWars website. And as you can see, if you do the drop down tab and go to the stand-in, the kind of death corks, if you will, but the Grimguard, you can see that there is so many options and units to choose from when it comes to doing a Death Corps of Krieg army with this force. Whether you want your cavalry to be on motorbikes or on foot, or you want a sniper unit, you want a Valhalla like a snow style Krieg unit, they have it all. You want tanks, you want walkers, it's just all your characters there, your command squads, your engineers. Yeah, they've just basically been working on these guys for quite a number of years. I've been a supporter of them since I first seen the Death Corps of Krieg riders on motorbikes as stand-in for Death Riders. Absolutely love that, and I've decided to kind of go along with it. And I've been subscribed ever since. So my stockpile of files for these guys has been building and building and building. And now when I want to add something new to my Krieg, I just go through this backlog and decide what it wants to be. Even the Death Corps Ogrins, which isn't technically right in the lore, they shouldn't have them. I don't give a crap, it looks so cool. And the sculpts for them are absolutely amazing. So I definitely have been adding some Death Corps of Krieg Bulgrins and Ogrins into my Krieg army, and I've been loving every second of it. Okay, with the shade dry and the base also complete, I like doing the basing while everything is drying. It makes it quick and easy. As you can see, the model looks fantastic, and all we're going to do is make those colors pop a little bit more. We don't want to pop too much. These guys are skulking and hiding in trenches. They don't want to be standing out too much and getting shot. And as per usual, we're going to reach for the base paint, the Fang, and use that to layer up his great coat. I'm going to take my time here. I'm going to use the very tip of the brush, minimal amount of paint, and I just want to go in and highlight all of the raised areas on the jacket. It will be quite a lot of the jacket, but I want to make sure all those creases and folds and everything like that, we're going to leave that dark shadowed area behind, which is going to give a real sense of detail across this miniature. If you go like too far and you paint up too much of the coat as the Fang, it's just going to look like a blue raincoat. It's going to look less like a soldier, less like a war miniature and more like a toy, which is something that we are trying to avoid. So this stage here is probably the most time consuming part of painting Krieg for me, is layering up the jacket. But once it's done, it does make a huge difference to the actual miniature. I love how that looks. Obviously we can weather it up later on with a little bit of pigments. Obviously these guys are not supposed to be pristine. They stand in trenches for hours, days, weeks at a time, waiting for that whistle to blow where they can go over the top, charge across no man's land, and fight the enemies of the Imperium. Some Mornfang Brown was then brought out to highlight all of those brown areas. So everywhere that we used for Wildwood, that includes his trousers. I left his boots dark. Wildwood, I left them as they are because why not? Boots shouldn't be, I think, as bright as everything else. But going around the webbing, the casing on his Laslock rifle is going to get done with the Mornfang Brown as well. And any other bits and pieces that you can find throughout the miniature where you apply that Wildwood. On some miniatures, some sculpts of the Grimguard, there will be some extra bits to do, bags and pouches and stuff, so just pay attention. More gassed bone I had to hand, and I'm going to use this to layer up his gas mask and his gloves and stuff like that. In previous videos, I used Zandri Dust, and I probably would have used Zandri Dust here today, except I can't find my Zandri Dust. I'm going to have to order another pot of it. More gas bone is pretty close, and it blends in really well, so it's not too hard. So whichever one you have is perfectly fine. Just try and be consistent across your army. So if you use Zandri Dust for one, try and use that across the board. I guess I've now consigned all of my Grimguard squads to be layered up with more gas bone. I then grabbed a little bit of lead belcher again, went back in and highlighted all of the metallic bits. This guy is in an absolutely beautiful sculpt. He is charging forward. I imagine him going down like the length of an enemy trench. He has dropped in, he is charging down, firing off his weapon, and he has his blade in his left hand, ready to strike it at anyone coming out of like bolt holes or, you know, jumping out and attacking him, making sure none of the guys in the ground aren't faking being dead. He's just ready for close combat as well as firing off his las gun. A bit of Evil Sunz Scarlet, and we're just going to paint that into the eye lenses on the gas mask. This is just going to help to make his red glowy eyes stand out. And with that, we have our finished Death Corps of Kriegman or Grimguard Infantry, whichever way you want to do it. Like I said, all that stuff is going to be linked down in the description below if you want to check it out for yourself. If you have been intrigued to play some Death Corps of Krieg, and you don't have to play in an official Games Workshop capacity, you've got a local independent you can play in and stuff like that, then by all means, start off your army with these miniatures. You will absolutely not be disappointed. They're beautiful. And please let me know if you want to see more Grimguard in the future. I would love to share more of this range with you guys in the future. Okay guys, here's the first of my new Krieg infantry, the first of 55 miniatures I plan on doing for this resin squad, or this 3D printed squad platoon of Death Corps of Krieg. A lot of fun painting them up. The details actually crisper and nicer than the old Forge World ones, surprise, surprise. The Forge World ones are just such old miniatures. I'm glad that they're out of the way. They're the first one that I did because I don't think I've got the heart to go back and do any more Forge World ones. They're just not quite up to the standard that we are used to in both the plastic and these awesome 3D prints. So glad I have them, glad they're done, but now I can move on to crisper and sharper miniatures. So over the next couple of weeks, I am just going to keep getting more and more of these miniatures. Obviously, I support Station Forge over on Patreon, and I have a whole heap of 3D printers, so I'm capable of just continuing to print off these squads by myself. But if you want to get your hands on them and do not have a 3D printer, do not fret. Like I said, I will leave links down below over to ProxyWars, where you can get your hands on their full range at a very good price. Okay guys, do those 3 normal things you should do for all creators if you enjoy their content. Make sure you give the video a like. Ask me any questions if you have them in the comments below. It helps push out the video. And if you're not already subscribed, make sure you subscribe. It really does help us out. Every single one of us creators out there, if you enjoy our content, do those things and it will help us a lot. If you want to go an extra mile, of course, there's links down below to things like my Patreon. There's a bunch of benefits for being involved in that as well. You can check those out in the description below. All right, guys, thank you so much for sticking around at the end of this video. Hope you enjoyed me painting up a Krieg miniature. If you want to see more, please do let me know. And yeah, have a good one.